55, 57 minutes that I've had off since Get Up that I'm going to be much calmer in this debate. And if I took it over the top on Get Up, I apologize to you.
No,
You know, it's all in good fun.
my brother.
You know, it's all in
no
good
apologies.
fun.
It's all in fun, man. We just having a good time.
You know, there's a few things I just want to unpack here. So you sort of brought this up, and one of the things that I think should be sort of stated and acknowledged is that players are very smart, and players have been intelligent. The best players have been intelligent since the beginning of the NBA. And what do players do? They respond to the rules of their era, and they look to take advantage of the rules of their era. So in a more physical era like the 1980s, when fighting was predominantly allowed, there wasn't as much of a deterrent to fight. The suspensions, the fines weren't as significant. They fought. In the 1990s, hand checking was allowed. Of course, a guy like Gary Payton or Derek Harper, they're going to engage in that rule and use it to their advantage. In today's game, because of the rules centering on allowing a more free-flowing game and a more free-flowing offense, players are going to respond to that. They're going to try to accentuate contact when they're the offensive player. As a defensive player, your hands are sort of tied behind your back, so you're going to accentuate when the offensive player gives you a little nudge. That's just trying to take advantage of the rules of their era. On the point about Draymond, and I'm going to get to Draymond in a second, on the point about Draymond, I would just say this. Each era of basketball, there is a philosophy around how you're going to play. And that philosophy is largely based on the talent and skill set of the best players. And so when you have an era where the philosophy is built around big guys and centers like the 90s, that offensive philosophy is going to flow through them. When you have an era where players have developed the skill set to shoot efficient pull-up three-pointers from 35 feet, like Steph Curry and Trae Young and Damian Lillard, then you're going to try to give them the space required to shoot those threes or get downhill and make plays. That's just the evolution of the game over and over and over. In reference to Draymond saying players in the 80s or the 90s when it was more physical, and it was more physical, they needed to be more skilled. I don't think he's wrong in saying that. And some of it is probably the pushback on that message is the messenger, right? We don't think of Draymond as like this incredibly skilled offensive player, but as Stephen A. so eloquently put, Draymond is incredibly intelligent. He's one of, period. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA, in the history of the NBA, period.
Ever.
And he is skilled in the sense that he understands how to manipulate defenses because of the way that he moves the ball, because of the way that he screens for a guy like Steph Curry. Dre and I have talked about this before. When you look at the three of them, the big three for the Warriors, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green, all three of them would be great players in the NBA had they not played together. But their skill sets complement each other so well that they have elevated each other to elite status. All three will be in the Hall of Fame someday. You bring up the 86 Celtics, though, like you bring up one of the 5 best teams ever with one of the greatest front courts ever. That's unfair to Draymond to say that he couldn't. Hold on.
I'm talking about eras. This is the best Golden State era team, so I'm bringing up a team from the 80s that was the best team in the 80s. He's not on the Sacramento Kings.
You're not comparing the same thing because you're talking about a team where the philosophy and the skill set was based around one of the greatest front courts of all time. I'm saying that's unfair to Draymond to say that he couldn't play in that era.
He wouldn't play.
Because
he wouldn't be on that team. He wouldn't make the team.
So most people wouldn't.
Who is he playing over?
But
which out of those 4?
He's not. That's my point. It's unfair. But you said he couldn't play in that era. You said he couldn't play in that era.
That team, he wouldn't be nearly as big a factor in that era. They were all big and physical.
Fine.
Those things.
I'm agreeing with you that he maybe wouldn't have a big impact on that team because of, you're talking about in a vacuum, one of the greatest front courts ever on one of the greatest teams of all time.
Right.
Yeah, Draymond Green may not play 35 minutes on that team. I agree with you there. But I believe I heard you right when you said he couldn't play in that era, and then you named one other team.
2 other teams. The Lakers and Detroit.
The Pistons and the Lakers.
The Lakers and the Celtics.
Okay.
That's 3.
Prior to expansion, there was 24 teams in the NBA, so he's going to probably find a spot on 21 teams.
Remember, you had to be a better player in those days because with only 24 players, there's less jobs. So you had to be a better basketball player.
But that's you're making the assumption there that players today aren't better, aren't more skilled, aren't more advanced in sort of philosophical
fundamentally they're not as good.
ideologies about basketball.
Fundamentally, they're not as good. Because back in those days, Tim Duncan played 4 years in college basketball. These guys don't play 4 years in college basketball. Fundamentally, not nearly as good as the days.
What game are you watching today, Chris? Honestly, what game are you watching?
You think anybody's
today?
better fundamental player than Larry Bird? You think anybody is a better fundamental player than Larry Bird?
You're bringing up a top 10 player of all time.
You're bringing up the
I'm
Golden State
talking about
Warriors.
the average NBA player.
Right, okay.
The average NBA player today, you're saying is not more skilled than a player in the 80s.
So he's got better athlete.
Well, what are fundamentals then? Fundamentals are your
knowing how to
basic skill
play,
set.
get good shots, boxing out, taking what the defense gives you. All those things. Well, you didn't see the teams play. You didn't see the teams play.
Let me chime in. Let me chime in, guys.
What teams did you
Let me
play?
chime in.
Let you jump in here, Stephen A. I'll let you jump in here, Stephen A. in 1 second. I just want to repeat. I just want to repeat one thing that I said, and this was my main point on Get Up, Stephen. And again, I apologize for raising my voice to you and Greeny.
Oh, please.
My main point on Get Up was this: you guys, old heads. Let's be honest,
I agree. 100%.
Old heads.
I'm going to go the
that
old
have
way.
watched the game
Him older
in
than me.
person. Yes, I know. Have watched the game in person for decades. Again, I only have the luxury of modern technology.
But you
where I can
played.
watch
That's the
game on
advantage you
YouTube.
have.
I've watched enough basketball on YouTube.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.